Hello grade 9s and welcome to Supply and Demand 4, where we look at Mr. Sensitivity or Miss Sensitivity, the one who always shops for the lowest price. We're also going to look at specifically different factors that can influence demand and understand the concept of substitution. When we began our conversation about demand, it was really about two things. It was about price, and it was about, you could say, the taste or expectation or the desire of the consumer. I now want to make that a little bit more complicated. And these are the generally accepted 5 things that determine how much demand there is for a product. Price is obvious, and we've discussed it. Income is also fairly obvious. We have to be able to afford something. But now we need to talk about some other categories. When we get to the prices of related goods or services, it means, are there other products on the market that are cheaper or have better benefits that I might choose to spend my money on instead? It's important to note here it's a related good or service. It's not like deciding that I want to buy an iPhone instead of a pair of Nike shoes. Those are unrelated goods. It would rather be buying a Samsung phone instead of an iPhone. Demand is also influenced by our taste, by fashion, by influencers, and things that are hard to define. It's also defined largely by our families and our friends. They influence us on what we buy and what we consume. Lastly, and this is very, very important, does the product meet our expectations? And this relates to future purchases of a product or service. If I buy something that is very expensive, like a Ferrari, and it breaks down after I drive it only 2 kilometers, I'm going to be frustrated because it didn't meet my expectations. If I buy an iPhone and it takes terrible pictures, even though it said it would take amazing pictures, I probably will be frustrated, and the demand for the product will decrease if people don't feel like it meets their expectations. So in the future, remember that demand is determined by a complex interplay of different things. It's determined by, can I afford it? How much does it cost? Are there other alternatives that I could buy instead? And it's determined in a large part by our friends and family and the people who influence us, as well as my experience with my first purchase. If it's a terrible experience, I probably won't purchase that product again. I know that many of you don't go shopping with your parents to the grocery store. If you do, it might be more of a curse than something that is interesting. But I want to consider today the case of washing powder. And I want you to talk to your parents or whoever buys the stuff in your house. Do they really think carefully about which washing powder they purchase? Or do they just grab the bag of the cheapest washing powder on the shelf or whatever is on promotion? In our household, it's certainly the latter case. I always choose the cheapest option because washing powder pretty much smells the same, works the same, and acts the same. And why pay twice as much when I can get something on sale for 45 or 50 rand? In this particular example I've used, washing powder has a high level of substitution. Substitution means I can replace it with something else that will basically do the same job. Try to think for a moment now and pause the video. What other products might have a high level of substitution? If you think about the different things in your life, there are so many things that have a high level of substitution. But let's just go over a few. We've covered washing powder. Salt is usually used as an example because we really don't care what brand our salt is. And we generally don't pay a lot for salt. Eggs, you generally buy wherever you can get them for whatever price you can get them for. Exercise books for school, again, you generally choose the cheapest price. And things like petrol are often only purchased when we need them and where they are convenient. We don't care so much about going to a Shell garage or Total garage or Engine garage. We just buy petrol. In general, we could say things with a high level of substitution basically are very, very much the same. They are easily available, and there isn't a lot of brand loyalty. Now try to think of things that have a low substitution, things that are hard to replace or change in your life, or that you would never consider changing and swapping for something else. This list is going to be harder and is very, very subjective. That means that it really is up to the individual person because it's going to be strongly influenced by their personal desires and their personal taste. If we think about it, schools are often considered something with low substitution value. You become loyal to a school, and once you're in a school, it can often be very, very hard to leave, in part because you've got friends there and you've developed a relationship with the school and its teachers. Some people are very loyal to their brand of car, some people are not. But you know the type, the ones that will only drive a VW Golf, they'll only drive a BMW, a Land Rover, or whatever. Phones and technology can also lead to strong loyalty, and brands such as Apple and Samsung have loyal followings. Perhaps the place you live is something that you really, really like and is personalized and you don't really want to buy another house. And music is a great example for you in particular. We do still sometimes purchase music, and we would only purchase the type of music that we liked, and we wouldn't choose another boring type of music like classical music or something else which you would find hideous. So to sum up, low substitution, the more different a type of product is, which we call differentiation, and the stronger the loyalty to the brand or the stronger customer service and brand experience that someone has, the lower the chances you're going to swap that particular type of product for something else. As a final note on substitution, lower priced items tend to be highly substituted, whereas very expensive things tend to be lower substitution items because more research, loyalty, and personal preference is at stake. Hopefully this makes sense, and it will be important as we consider our next topic in the next lesson on elasticity of demand.